And is it? It is visible, sir.
It is visible now.
Yeah.
So this is my today's topic of discussion, that is scientific research process and design, choosing research topic and defining a research question. So in this discussion, I will introduce you about how to formulate a research question and how to develop a research process and how to develop a research proposal. So in this topic, there are different things. For example, a scientific research process. Scientific research process is not a simple task. It has a huge complexity, and it's a very important component in the research. And how to design your research, this is another question. And choosing research topic, how to choose your topic for research and defining a research question. So these are the 3 or 4 major indicators which lead to development of research proposal when you are doing research. So I am going on this the last slide of my presentation, but I would like to start from the last to the beginning. And this is the general layout and the general sketch of the research proposal. You can see here on the slide that research proposal and your research. For example, your whole research consists of 3 major components. One is exploration, the other one is research design, and the third and most important one is research execution. So in exploration phase, there are different concepts and different things which you need to explore while doing research. For example, in exploration, you have to understand what is your research question and how you will do literature review and how you develop and how you take some insight from theory. And then you develop a research design in which there are some concepts and some, the component which lead to operationalization, research method, and sampling strategy. So these are the 6 major components which lead to research proposal. When you are developing your research proposal, you have to understand the major concepts behind the research proposal. For example, while making a research proposal, there is a need to understand the research question. There is a need to understand basically a basic foundation of research. And for developing a research question, there is a need to understand what is science. So science, research, and the research process and the scientific method is the basic foundation to formulate and tune the research question. So before going into the larger detail, I would like to share some core and the basic explanation of research. What is the meaning of research and what is the meaning of science, and how we see the world and how we see the social phenomena as a researcher. So so without explaining these fundamental concepts, it is not possible to understand the philosophy of research proposal and the philosophy of research question which you are formulating in your So coming back to the initial concepts, which is prevalent in the research proposal, there are some basic components. For example, research and science. So these two are the most fundamental foundations for understanding research process. For example, where does the research process start? Your research process starts from the research, and your research is basically coming up from the science. So these two concepts are here. One is research. For example, what is the meaning of research and how we conduct research? So basically, research, there are 2 major functions of research. One is research is that very knowledge that contribute in the body of science. Number 1 characteristics of research is it is a contribution in the body of science, and science means knowledge. And number 2 is following scientific method. So these 2 components are necessary in research. When you are adding something in the field of knowledge, it means you are doing research. And when you are applying some scientific method, it means you are doing some research work. So coming next, that is science. What is the meaning of science? You all know that science is a word, is a Latin word that is called scientia, means knowledge. So science refers to a systematic and organized body of knowledge in any area of inquiry that is acquired using the scientific method. Here I have mentioned the scientific method within quote. So scientific method need further exploration. For example, the purpose of science is to create scientific knowledge. Scientific knowledge refers to a generalized body of laws and theories to explain a phenomena or behavior of interest that are acquired using the scientific method. So in this statement, there are two major components and two major concepts, that is laws and the theories. So we have to understand what is the meaning of law, what is the meaning of theories. So here, laws are observed patterns or phenomena or behavior, while theories are systematic explanation of the underlying phenomena or behavior. So logic, that is theory and evidence, which is based on observation, are the two and the only two pillars upon which scientific knowledge is based. And this is called positivist way of discovering scientific knowledge. In science, theories and observations are interrelated and cannot exist without each other. Theories provide, yes.
शकील साहब, sorry आपको डिस्टर्ब करो, आप जरा ये फुल स्क्रीन कर लीजिए, कुछ पार्टिसिपेंट कह रहे कि जरा फुल स्क्रीन. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Okay. It's okay now? So, okay, all right. So I am explaining logic, that is called theory, and evidence, which means observation, are the two and the only two pillars upon which scientific knowledge is based. In science, theories and observations are interrelated and cannot exist without each other. So theories provide meaning and significance to what we observe, and observation help validate or refine existing theory or construct a new theory. Scientific research operates at two levels, a theoretical level and empirical level, means deduction and induction. So there's a need to explore or explain deduction and induction. In the next slide, we will explain deduction and induction. So scientific inquiry may take one of two possible forms, that is inductive or deductive. In inductive research, the goal of a researcher is to infer theoretical concepts and patterns from observed data. In deductive research, the goal of the researcher is to test concepts and patterns known from new empirical data. Hence, inductive research is called theory building research, and deductive research is called theory testing research. So conducting scientific research therefore requires two sets of skills. Number one is theoretical, and number two is methodological. Methodological skill is very easy and you can acquire it in a very easy manner. However, theoretical skill is based on your experiences. It is more harder to master, requires years of observation and reflection, and are tested skills that cannot be taught, but rather learned through experience. So methodological skills are needed to be an ordinary researcher, but theoretical skills are needed to be an extraordinary researcher. So in theoretical skills, you have to find what would you like to find and why you would like to find something in your research. So now coming to towards explaining scientific method, what is the meaning of scientific method? So scientific method is a standardized set of techniques for building scientific knowledge, such as how to make valid observation, how to interpret results, and how to generalize those results. The scientific method allows researchers the scientific method allows researchers to independently and impartially test pre-existing theories and prior findings and subject them to open debate, modification, or enhancement. These scientific method must satisfy 4 key characteristics. Number 1, it should be a logical scientific method, and scientific discoveries and organization of knowledge should be logical. It means scientific inferences based on logical principles of reasoning. Second one is confirmable, which means inferences derived must match with observed evidence. And third one is repeatable. Other scientists should be able to independently replicate or repeat a scientific study and obtain similar, if not identical, results. And the last one is scrutinizable. The procedures used and the inferences derived must withstand critical scrutiny. Scrutiny means peer review by other scientists. So depending on the purpose of research, scientific research projects can be grouped into 3 major types. One is exploratory research, second is descriptive research, and the number third is explanatory research. And what is the meaning of descriptive research? What is the meaning of exploratory research? And what is the meaning of explanatory research? So we should need to rethink or think over it. For example, exploratory research meaning is conducted in it is conducted in a new phenomena, in a new area of inquiry, where the goals of the research are, number 1, to scope out the magnitude or extent of a particular phenomena, problems, or behavior. The second one is to generate some initial ideas about that phenomena. And the third one, to test the feasibility of undertaking a more extensive study regarding that phenomena. So coming towards the descriptive research means it is directed at making careful observation and detailed documentation of a phenomena of interest. And explanatory research seeks explanation of observed phenomena, problems, or behavior, while descriptive research examines the what. These are the questions which are addressed in the descriptive research, which starts from what, where, and when of phenomena. Explanatory research seek answer to why and how types of research question. When you are applying the word why and how in your research question, it means you are now going to use explanatory research for your research. So mastering our scientific method, I suggest you to read history of scientific thought, including dogma, rationalism, empiricism, German idealism, positivism, post-positivism, anti-positivism, and critical theory. This will help you in setting up your research tone, being a researcher. So it means philosophy and research methodology both are interconnected with each other. Without understanding the deeper concepts in the philosophy, for example, how knowledge comes up, what is the history of knowledge, and what is the theory of knowledge. So without understanding these concepts, sometimes it is very difficult for a researcher to set a tone of their research questions and literature in a proper manner. So it's my suggestion to read these concepts when you are doing research at a master level or PhD level. So coming toward the research process, scientific research is the process of acquiring scientific knowledge using the scientific method. But how is such research conducted? The question is how the such type of research is being conducted. So in the research process, researcher shape their research under different contexts, under different, the paradigms. So our design and conduct of research is shaped by our mental modes or frames of references that we use to organize our reasoning and observation. So these mental models or frames means belief systems are called paradigm. And word paradigm was coined by Thomas Kuhn in scientific discovery, in his famous book of scientific discoveries. Our personal paradigms are like colored glasses that govern how we view the world and how we structure our thoughts about what we see in the world. Two popular paradigms today among social science researchers are positivism and post-positivism. Positivism holds that science or knowledge creation should be restricted to what can be observed and measured. Positivism tends to rely exclusively on theories that can be directly tested. Positivism led to empiricism or a blind faith in observed data and a rejection of any attempt to extend or reason beyond observable facts. Post-positivism argues that one can make reasonable inferences about a phenomenon by combining empirical observation with logical reasoning. The post-positivist camp is further fragmented into subjectivists who view the world as a subjective construction of our subjective minds rather than as an objective reality, and critical realists who believe that there is an external reality that is independent of a person's thinking, but we can never know such reality with any degree of certainty. So these are different paradigms under which a researcher shape as a core research argument. So the next one is ontology and epistemology, and these two terms are more philosophical, and here I suggest you to read the debate on epistemology. So here I would like to focus on Burrell and Morgan book, Sociological Paradigm and Organizational Analysis. In this book, these authors suggested that the way social science researchers view and study social phenomena is shaped by two fundamental sets of philosophical assumptions. Number one is ontology, and the second one is epistemology. Ontology refers to our assumption about how we see the world. For example, does the world consist mostly of social order or constant change? And epistemology refers to our assumption about the best way to study the world. For example, should we use an objective or subjective approach to study social reality? Using these two sets of assumptions, we can categorize social science research as belonging to one of four categories if researchers view the world as consisting mostly of social order, for example, ontology, and hence seek to study patterns of order, events, or behavior, and believe that the best way to study such a world is using objective approach, which means epistemology, that is independent of the persons conducting the observation or interpretation, such as by using standardized data collection if they believe that the best way to study social order is though the subjective interpretation of participants involved, such as by interviewing different participants and reconciling differences among their responses using their own subjective perceptives, then they are implying an interpretivism paradigm. If researchers believe that the world consists of radical change and seek to understand or enact change using an objectivist approach, then they are implying a radical structuralism paradigm. If they wish to understand social change using the subjective perceptives of the participants, then they are following a radical humanism paradigm. So these are the four different paradigms sometimes researchers used in their research. So this is the general framework of research proposal. This is the functionalist research proposal, and I suggest you to see the basic foundation and basic structure of the research proposal, and you can rearrange and restructure these concepts as per the demand of your core research question. When you are doing research on different topics, on different research questions, you can rearrange, you can alter, you can modify this structure as per your requirement. So I would like to explain this diagram which reflect the larger framework or the larger paradigm of making developing a research proposal, which focusing on exploration phase, research design, and later on research execution. Research execution is not part of your research proposal. Your research proposal is basically based on your research question, your literature review, theory, operationalization, and research method, and finally a sampling strategy. When you are implying and adopting these 6 tools in your research document, then you are focusing to develop on research proposal. So explaining a research question, I would like to first explain in the first component, that is exploration. The first phase of research is exploration. This phase includes exploring and selecting research question for further investigation, examination, or examining the published literature in the area of inquiry to understand the current state of knowledge in that area and identifying theories that may help answer the research question of interest. So the first step in the exploration phase is identifying one or more research questions dealing with a specific behavior, event, or phenomena of interest. Research questions are specific questions about a behavior, event, or phenomena of interest that you wish to seek answer for in your research. Examples include what factors motivate consumers to purchase goods and services online without knowing the vendors of these goods or services. How can we make high school students more creative, and why do some people commit terrorist acts? Research question can delve into issues of what, why, how, when, and so forth. Many more interesting research questions are those that appeal to a broader population. For example, how can firms innovate is a more interesting research question, than how can Chinese firms innovate in the service sector. Address real and complex problems in contrast to a hypothetical or try problem, and where the answers are not obvious. Narrowly focused research question, which means often with a binary yes or no answer, tend to be less useful and less interesting and less suited to capture the subtle nuances of social phenomena. Uninteresting research questions generally lead to uninteresting and unpublished research findings. So the next step is to conduct a literature review. Here you can see the next, the bar is a literature review. The next step is to conduct a literature review of the domain of interest. The purpose of literature review is four. Number one is to survey the current state of knowledge in the area of inquiry. Number two, to identify key authors, articles, theories, and findings in that area. And number third is to identify gaps in knowledge in that research area. So these three are the fundamental objectives of the literature review. And when you are reviewing literature, you must focus on these three fundamental points. I once again repeat these three fundamental points. Number one is the purpose of literature review is to survey the current state of knowledge in the area of inquiry. Number two is to identify key authors, articles, theories, and findings in that area. And third, to identify gaps in knowledge in their research area. So literature review is commonly done today using computerized keyword searches in online database. Keywords can be combined using, for example, and, or, operations to narrow down or expand the search results. Once a short list of relevant articles is generated from the keyword search, the researcher must then manually browse through each article or at least its abstract section to determine the suitability of that article for a detailed review. Literature reviews should be reasonably complete and not restricted to a few journals, a few years, or a specific methodology. Reviewed articles may be summarized in the form of tables and can be further structured using organizing frameworks such as COMSATS matrix. A well-conducted literature review should indicate whether the initial research questions have already been addressed in the literature, which would obviate the need to study them again. Whether there are newer, which means new, whether there are new or more interesting research questions available, and whether the original research question should be modified or changed in light of finding of the literature review. The review can also provide some intuitions or potential answers to the question of interest and or help identifying theories that have previously been used to address similar questions. Since functionalist, which means deductive, research involves theory testing, the third step is to identify one or more theories can help address the desired research question. So now we are coming towards third point, which is a theory. While the literature review may uncover a wide range of concepts or constructs potentially related to the phenomena of interest, a theory will help identify which of these constructs is logically relevant to the target phenomena and how. Foregoing theories may result in measuring a wide range of less relevant, marginally relevant, or irrelevant constructs while also minimizing the chances of obtaining results that are meaningful and not by pure chance. In functionalist research, theories can be used as the logical basis for postulating hypotheses for empirical testing. Obviously, not all theories are well suited for studying all social phenomena. Theories must be carefully selected based on their fit with the target population or target problem and the extent to which their assumptions are consistent with that of the target problem. So the next phase in the research process is research design. Now we are coming on this point, that is research design. This process is concerned with the creating a blueprint of the activity in order to satisfactorily answer the research question identified in the exploration phase. This includes selecting a research method, operationalizing constructs of interest, and devising an appropriate sampling strategy. And next is in this section, the next one is operationalization. So operationalization is the process of designing the size measure for abstract theoretical construct. This is a major problem in social science research, given that many of the constructs such as prejudice, alienation, and liberalism are hard to define, let alone measure accurately. Operationalization starts with specifying an operational definition of the construct of interest. Next, the researcher can search the literature to see if there are existing pre-validated measures matching their operational definition that can be used directly or modified to measure their construct of interest. If such measures are not available, or if existing measures are poor, or reflect a different conceptualization than that intended by the researcher, new instrument may have to be designed for measuring those constructs. This means specifying exactly How exactly the desired construct will be measured? This can easily be a long and laborious process with multiple rounds of pretest and modification before a newly designed instrument can be accepted as scientifically valid. Simultaneously with operationalization, the researcher must also decide their research method they wish to employ for collecting data to address their research question of interest. Such method may include such as experiments or survey research, or quantitative methods such as case research or action research, or possibly a combination of both. So now coming towards the next point, which is here sampling. So researcher must also carefully choose the target population from which they wish to collect data and a sampling strategy to select a sample from the population. For instance, should this survey individual or firms or work groups within firms? What types of individuals or firms they wish to target? Sampling strategy is closely related to the unit of analysis in a research problem. While selecting a sample, reasonable care should be taken to avoid a biased sample. For example, sample based on convenience that may generate biased observation. Sampling is a most important component in a research design. At this stage, it is often a good idea to write a research proposal detailing all of the decision made in the preceding stage of the research process and the rationale behind each decision. This multi-part proposal should address what research question you wish to study and why, the prior state of knowledge in this area, theories you wish to apply, and the hypothesis to be tested, how to measure construct, what research method to be employed, and why, and desired sampling strategy. So these are the fundamental, the component of research proposal and its detail. And the next stage is research execution. So in the later, the workshop, I would like to share this part about research execution. So far, was to introduce you about the basic concept of the research proposal and how to formulate a research question and how to develop a research proposal. So these are the major components and major, the foundations of the research proposal. And I wish you may understand all these concepts, and I suggest you to read and you try to read more and more regarding different concepts. For example, history of scientific thought and history of research question. And I have already explained the meaning and the purpose of literature review. Hopefully, in near future, you will develop your research proposal in the light of these discussions. So once again, thank you very much for listening to me.